Grinders! Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD if you want to follow me on Twitter. It's Wednesday, January 10th. We'll be taking a look at tonight's 8-game NBA slate. We still got some NHL going on. We got some props. We got some pick'em. We got tons of stuff going on here at RotoGrinders. We got golf, PGA's back, MMA's coming back this week. So definitely tune in to the show this week and all of our content. Hit that thumbs up button. You know how much I like the thummy thumbs. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to know always when we go live. Join with me on this Wednesday. It's getting cold. It's getting cold out there, but we're nice and warm inside. It's mean Kyle Murray talking about an NBA slate at 11 o'clock in the morning, because that's always the best time to talk about NBA, when before 17 pieces of news comes in that are going to change everything.
Yeah, especially on a big slate, but always good to talk props in the morning. You know, the lines move a lot on these props, so I always recommend getting in there early. So yeah, I think you kind of get a yin and a yang here early in the morning for NBA. But yeah, I think it's 8 games, and they have a couple of games left off the night slate too, like DraftKings has been doing. But you can always target those games for props as well. So yeah, it's a good slate.
Right. The problem with props though is that sometimes I take a look at our statistical projections. Right. We have them right here, our premium projections. Now, I mean, I don't know if there were any manual updates. The ownership has been updated. Okay, well, 10 hours ago, whatever. I take a look at the stuff, and what ends up happening, Kyle, is that you go, okay, well, first thing you look and you say, okay, what are the injury situations? Who are we waiting on? Like, I'm assuming that, betting on Boston Celtics props today, either the numbers are not up or you wouldn't want to anyway, because who knows who's playing. But then you look at some other games and you go, okay, well, Washington, Indiana, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong. No one's on the injury report, or no one's, on the questionable or whatever the hell it is. And then next thing you know, half the team is out or something. Kyle Kuzma decides to not play or something. Like, and then every prop that you took is like, oh, that's like the opposite of what it like. It's like you took unders on 2 people, and then the other guy's out, and now you're sitting there going, whoops. So how do you handle NBA props early?
Yeah, I will say this year, I feel like, I mean, and I have no math or anything to back this up, but at least for me personally, I feel like this year hasn't been as bad of getting news that sort of ruin a prop later. Like, I feel like 2 years ago it was happening all the time, but yeah, this year I feel like it's been pretty tame. Obviously, they have a couple of new rules for injuries and stuff, and guys like some of the top players, they have to play, I think, 65 games or something to qualify for these awards. So guys are playing more, but so I think that probably helps some things, but I think sometimes you just sort of have to. It's just part of the variance of betting, I guess. Like, if you have a prop early, I think I guess when you compare getting a good prop early, like, you get someone, you take their points prop and over, and it moves 2 points by the time, lock comes around. That's happened a handful of times. I think that happens more often than you take a guy and his teammate is ruled out or whatever, and you have his under, and that's sort of ruined. So I think it's just sort of part of the aspect of it. And then even sometimes you can say, hey, Boston is 13-point favorites here against the Spurs. There's a good chance that maybe Jaylen Brown or Tatum sits. Maybe you are looking at, one of their overs, or, you can do things like that as well. So I would say that for the most part, it's something that you can't really do much about. You just sort of look for the best lines and let the chips fall as they may. And so far this year, at least in my opinion, it hasn't been too bad. And like I said, I think I've had more luck getting a good line early on in the day. Like, sometimes I'll look at props at 2 or 3 in the morning just because I'm up and doing nothing, and that's sort of the way I like to do it. But and then I get a lot of good lines that way, and I feel like I've had more luck that way than getting unlucky with news as the day goes on.
Right. Typically, I don't mind when it's 50-50 on a questionable team. I don't mind taking the overs on the stars.
Yeah.
Right. The overs on the because worst thing that happens is that, if that guy is out, number one, your bet's going to get voided. So you don't have to worry about it. And then, you're not stuck in a situation. It's typically the unders. And truthfully, a lot of times the best numbers are the unders. A lot of times you're looking and you're seeing here, it's like, oh, Embiid is out today for the 76ers, right? And maybe there's some, maxi unders. Maybe his lines are set too high. I'm not saying they are. I'm just giving you an example. And then next thing you know, like half the rest of the team sits out, and it's like, Yeah. Now the line moves against you later in the day, and you've gotten a worse number, 4 points off, and like
Yeah.
there's a different story because if you take someone and right, Giannis sits out, and you have Middleton's Drew Holiday. Well, not anymore. Drew Holiday. I don't follow the NBA. Dame Lillard's overs. Like you feel much more comfortable then,
Yeah.
but it's the unders. I've gotten screwed so many times on. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
there's nothing going on with this team, right? So it's like, okay, I'll take this under, that under, this under, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, Halliburton's out. It's like, well, that screws everything up. It's like all these rejection moves. Now it's like my unders are like 42% chances, and it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
just threw away money there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, unless a guy is returning unexpectedly, your over numbers are probably never going to get worse. So that's a good point. Unless projections change for whatever reason. But for the most part, when you project a guy out, his overs typically aren't going to get worse as much as maybe unders are if someone's ruled out. So that's a good point as well.
Because the only thing that today isn't that bad outside of the Celtics. Basically, I look at this and go, okay, we need to know about the Celtics. We need to know about Zion Williamson and probably Clint Capella, I guess, to some extent, right?
Yeah, Zion is the big questionable tag. Obviously, the two biggest pieces of news we already got with Embiid and Halliburton being out. So, yeah, I would say Zion is definitely the biggest piece of news. Capella sounds pretty questionable. It sounds like Melton might return. He's missed the last few games. And then, yeah, obviously the Celtics as well. I feel like the Celtics have been sort of questionable all year long. And it seems like they've been sort of rotating these guys out, like giving them like days off almost in shifts, at least as of late. And obviously, tough matchup here against Minnesota. Maybe they want to be at full strength here. So I would assume these guys play unless they are truly too hurt to play, which that doesn't appear to have been the case for the most part of the year where they've been questionable in playing. But yeah, I would say Zion is the big news. He missed last game, so he's probably extremely questionable here. But yeah, the rest of the big
let's
news.
talk
Yeah.
about that situation then,
Yeah.
Kyle. If Zion is currently projected in our projections, which you could get if you're a RotoGrinders combo premium member, feel free to click on that link in the description, get $10 off your first month. Like we project the questionable guys in. Doubtful guys, we don't. Right? Guys that are already ruled out or whatever, we don't. Questionable, we leave in. Now, a lot of times, especially in these types of situations, throughout the course of the day, we'll release what's called what if projections. Yep. So they won't be accounted in lineup HQ, but you'll be able to go to the page where if Zion Williamson is out, this is what we project the rest of the Pelicans to be. So you'll get that you'll get that information if you want to pre-plan for that. Obviously, those projections will end up being updated within a couple of minutes when we do get the actual news if Zion is playing. But if you want to get a head start, that's always available for you. But I'm assuming if Zion is out, I mean, the standard people that you'd play, I mean, they basically what? Joe Val and Ingram and all those guys. I mean, like remember, I'm not playing NBA DFS anymore. So to me, like keeping up with when I bet on props, Kyle, I'm looking at our prop model, right? I'm looking at the pick'em tool, and it's like I died. I mean, I won a prize picks card yesterday, and I wasn't aware what teams like I didn't realize OG Anunoby was on the Knicks.
That's pretty new though.
I was looking, I was like, where's RJ Barrett on the why I go to DraftKings and I'm betting on props also, and I'm looking for the RJ Barrett Knicks props. And I'm like, why isn't his combo prop here? And it's like, oh, he's not on the Knicks anymore. Right.
That's pretty recent at least. That's not too bad. That happened a few days ago.
That's not too bad, right?
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, but that's my perspective. Like if I'm not dealing with NBA DFS. I decided like it's not worth the time. But to be fair, the fact that they're starting to cut off these later games makes me more and more apt. I still don't think I do it, but I mean more and more apt to get back into NBA DFS. But I'd much rather, Kyle, I'd much rather like you do 2-3 in the morning or 2-3 in the afternoon. Go look and go, okay, I'm going to bang out like 50 NBA props.
Yeah.
And then close my laptop and be done. And just play.
There you go.
I'm done. Right. I mean, just like, there's no swapping. I don't have to care what other people do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a better return than like DFS cash games. So it's like, okay, it is what it is. And then I'll play NHL. I'll play NHL. Like I'll play NHL tonight, but I won't play NBA because of it. But getting back on track, like, what's this? What is there going to be? If any of these questionable guys, let's go through like Capella, Melton, Zion, the Boston guys. Is there any like value guys that like if some of these guys are out, it's gonna be one of these guys that are like 80% on that you're gonna have to play. Like that's kind of what I'm looking for DFS.
Yeah, 80%, I don't know. I wouldn't say, one of those like automatic smash value plays that just, are instantly in lineups, but definitely some guys in the mid tier that are going to get a lot better. Obviously, if Zion's out, Ingram and McCollum get the biggest bumps. Joe Val gets a slight boost. You still always have to worry about Joe Val's minutes, especially in a spot against Golden State where they could easily go small. I think Joe Val could be a little bit suspect with his minutes here, but Ingram, McCollum would be smash plays. And then Trey Murphy would also be a pretty solid value, I guess, value-ish play. Not really super cheap, but cheap enough. So Murphy would probably stand out a little bit. Maybe Najee Marshall from a value perspective as well, because I think Jose Alvarado is also either questionable or doubtful. But if he's also out, then, that's another 17, 18 minutes a game that are going to be out of the rotation that would help a guy like Najee Marshall. So I would say Marshall and Murphy would be the cheap guys for the Pelicans. If Porzingis is out for Boston, you'll have the Sam Hauser type plays that will pop up a little bit. Again, I don't think these are smash plays that are from a value perspective where you're just jamming in. But if Drew Holiday and Porzingis are out, there's a couple of guys. Peyton Pritchard would be pretty interesting. Pritchard's already been playing about 20, 22 minutes as of late. He's kind of got a natural bump based on his minutes, which has been nice to see. And he's always been a pretty productive guy. So Pritchard would stand out. And then Derek White, definitely not a value guy, but if Drew Holiday's out, he does get a pretty solid boost. Actually, with both of those guys off the floor this year, and it's not even too bad of a sample. 227 minutes for Derek White. His usage rate goes up to 28% and 8% boost on the year, which is by far the highest that anyone sees on this Boston team. So if both of those guys are out, looking at Derek White as a strong mid-range play, Pritchard and Hauser as value plays. We actually just got some news. Al Horford is at shoot around, so I guess we'll see if Drew Holiday and Porzingis are also there pretty soon here.
And then there's two games on this slate that the totals have gotten insane in the NBA.
Oh yeah,
right. So we have Washington, Indiana, 253 total. How do you not play? The only thing about the Pacers, right? We take a look at the Wizards side. Slightly also, but the Pacers. Does anyone play more than 30 minutes?
That's a good question. I feel like, with Halliburton out, they obviously have a lot of guys. They have like a 12. We have them at, I think, a 12 or 11 man rotation here. So probably not.
Like, good luck. I look at this and I go, oh, the Pacers are going to score a lot of points.
Yeah.
All these guys are in like the 4 to 6K range. Good luck figuring out who's getting the ceiling game. Is it going to be Nembhard? Is it going to be Smith? Is it going to be Bruce Brown? TJ McConnell, 6,700. Aaron Nesmith, but Mathurin, Buddy Hield. It just feels like you're just like, good luck. Like someone's someone's gonna do well enough that you may want them, but how are you supposed to figure this? They have the 130 implied team total, and it's not even that big of a spread. Do you just play a bunch of them? It's not like they don't rate out that well from a mean perspective, but you can't deny that the ceilings are here when the Pacers have that high of a total.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing is with Halliburton being ruled out so early, DK priced these guys up pretty early. So McConnell, I think he's 6'7" on DraftKings, and I was on the morning grind with Stevie, so we did that last night. 10, and we were talking about this game, and I assumed that McConnell would project for more minutes than he is now. But looking at it, if they're going to play guys like Jordan Nwora and Jarace Walker, who they've been playing at times here, and just give these guys a couple minutes here and there, and then obviously have a handful of guys just between 24 and 28 minutes, it's going to be difficult for him to get a ton of run. The one guy that stands out to me is Jalen Smith. He's just such a good permanent producer. So, he's a guy who you're typically not expecting a ton of minutes from regardless. So he's a guy that makes some sense here. Obviously, a really good matchup. He just had a big game against Boston, and I think he played 23, 24 minutes in that one. So looks like he's projecting for a similar amount of minutes. And then McConnell, like I mentioned, Nemhard, these guys make sense as value plays. Aaron Neesmith also projects okay, but yeah, he's not really a very high upside guy. I think I would probably prefer to look at guys like Nemhard or even maybe Bruce Brown as a contrarian play before going to Neesmith, who's been better this year, but typically in past years, he hasn't been a super high ceiling guy.
And also, just to be clear, what you're seeing on the screen right now are our algorithmically generated projections from overnight. They're preliminary. So our projections team, who are behind the scenes every day, adjusting minutes, adjusting usages, adjusting everything, they will come in and start making adjustments throughout the course of the day. That's why it's very important. As I always say, check your timestamps.
Yeah.
Always check your timestamps. Another team, you mentioned Embiid is out. From what I could tell on Twitter, because this is all I know about the NBA DFS, is from people tilting on Twitter. Apparently, when Embiid is out, Maxey is supposed to do well and never does. But the 76ers have 122 implied team total in a game that it's a 245 with a 1.5 point spread. How do you not play this game? Like, Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey. I mean, especially if Melton's out also. I mean, is this you just play Maxey and hope people have recency bias and say they're getting sick of playing him with Embiid out? Because the Sixers just don't play well enough?
Yeah, and the thing about Maxey is, he all of his underlying numbers look really good with Embiid off 33% usage rate. It's just his shooting. It's just been bad, right? Like you're not typically expecting a guy to go out there and shoot, 1 for 9 every game, from three. Like that's what Maxey's sort of been doing the past 3 or 4 games. He's 2 for 8, 2 for 15, sorry, over his last 2 games from behind the arc. And that's obviously going to be a lot of variance there related to that, but his assist numbers have been up. He has, 3 out of his last 4 games, 7+ assists. So his assist numbers have been up, and that's a big thing. Embiid has been facilitating so much more this year, so they need people to be able to fill in that. So Maxey's going to have the natural ability to fill in there. The minutes are always going to be high for Maxey when the game stays close, which is what we're expecting in this game, with the close spread. So yeah, I think you just sort of you just enjoy and you hope that he's going to be left off of people's radars because of how bad he's been as of late. But 8-9 is also a really good price for him. So yeah, I think you just go back to him here. But if Melton's out, I like Tobias Harris again, 6'9" here. He's also been performing much better with these guys off the floor, obviously. But it's all been because of volume. Outside of last game, we only had 6 shots. He has like 6 or 7 games in a row with 13+ shots. So if he's going to continue to shoot the ball, he should continue to benefit from these guys being out.
Currently, right now, sorting by the RGV column. For people that may not know, the RGV stands for RotoGrinders Value, right? Technically, it's really salary adjusted value plus minus, right? So comparing what the amount of points to like make value at the salary, how many points above or below it is. It's a better metric than the point per dollar because it takes into account raw points. So it's like someone could be a point like 8x point per dollar for 3K, but that's only 24 points. So like that isn't a lot. So the RGV takes into account that getting 7 more points than average for an $8,500 player is worth a lot more than getting 7 points for some very cheap player. The top of the list is Terry Rozier right now at 8,500, more than Maxey. 38 minutes for the Hornets, who only have a 111 implied team total. Can you explain? Is it just that you just play anyone against the Kings and their efficiency just like they're gonna make everything? It doesn't matter, even though they're underdogs at home.
Yeah, I actually took this over on the morning grind, so I thought the number was just a little bit low. So maybe that's something to sort of explain that as to why maybe the projection looks better than you would expect based on the team total and the implied game total there. 230.5. I think when I talked about it last night, it was actually at 235. So yeah, I think this game, it's got to be because the Kings are on the second half of a back-to-back where they had to work hard against the Pistons, surprisingly, even though they ended up winning pretty easily. They were actually down by like 20 at one point. But yeah, with no no LaMelo Ball, no Gordon Hayward, Rozier's just had a ton of usage. So he makes some sense there for sure. And like you mentioned, the Kings have just been pretty bad defensively.
Did the Kings beat the Pistons last night?
Yeah.
The last time I checked my props or whatever, the Pistons were up by like 20 in the first half or something.
I want to say the Kings won by they won by 21.
The Kings won by 21.
I think at one point when I looked, the Pistons were up by 20 with like 7 minutes left in the first half, and by halftime they were down by like 5. So it's just like they're like just incredibly bad. It's like they are almost impressively bad.
Right. All I know about that game is I hit a $30 bonus SGP on Bet365 yesterday.
There you go.
Doing that game just by using our statistical projections. That's it. Right, 30 into 1080. That was pretty good for a 30 plus 3,500 SGP with the whatever boost or whatever. I don't normally do those huge ones, but I don't get them that I get greedy because I don't get the bonuses that often anymore because I win too much. So it's like, who could I take? Because basically I had the Duren and Bogdanovich overs, and it's like, well, like I'm taking like their PRA, their RA, like all of them, only just that because you need to have 3, right? It doesn't matter that the odds don't move up that much. It's like, just give me some money. I mean, if these are all 10+% edges in our projections, just give it to me. I don't care that it's like plus 275 combined. And then I'm like, well, these other 3 in the game on the other side, they also show like 8% edges. Well, I'll add this and I'll add that. And I'll see. It's like, do I stop at plus 1,200? It's like, no, I'll add this one. Okay. As long as the thing is that as long as they're all plus EV, according to our projections, by enough to compensate for the hold, as you start adding more into an SGP, realize that the hold increases. So like you want to make sure you're not just putting in stuff just to put in stuff. Make sure you have an edge on these. And then you also don't want to make anything that it becomes obviously negatively correlated, especially when most of these sites don't take that into account. They don't take that into account and they don't give you an extra price on it. Like at a certain point, Kyle, I don't know if you do that many SGPs. I only really do them when I have like bonuses, when they give it to me. It's like, oh, $10 no sweat, $50, whatever the hell. Like I'm really only doing it then. But on Prize Picks, this would be very similar because you're always taking like 5 or 6. Like, at what point we may show, like, for instance, I mean, I'll show the Pick'em tool. We may show, for instance, that everyone on the Hornets, all their assists are overs. Like, all of them. Like, but would you put, like, all of them in one? Because, like, how many assists are there to go around? Like imagine going, Rozier's over, Bridges over, Brandon Miller over, Cody Martin like unless they score a ton of, like, do you really want to put 4 assist props of 4 players that are on the court at the same time together, even though like maybe there's a 10% edge for each of them, but at a certain point, being that you have to hit all of them, that the third and fourth ones start becoming like they reduce your edge because it's less likely that the other guys hit. How do you take that into account with some of these, like especially the pick'em sites, if you're not doing SGPs?
Yeah, I will say, like even for me personally, like I agree. The only time I really do the SGPs is if I have bonuses, and a lot of times these days, if a site will give you a bonus, you have to do an SGP. Like it could be a parlay bonus, but it needs to be there has to be a same game leg in there. And that's because they know what they're doing. That's where they have their biggest margins is in same game parlay. So I try to stay away from them. But sometimes I've been building them. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to take 2 guys because they're on the same team, and it's like a assist prop or a rebound prop. And sometimes they are negatively correlated for sure. But also there's a lot to go around in the NBA for sure. So if there's an edge on the line, it's typically just because their number is too low compared to our number or my number or whatever. So I think 4 is too much, I would say. But I like 2 or 3, I would say 3, it was probably okay, but definitely I wouldn't shy away from 2 just because again, like if you are seeing an edge on that number there, it's typically going to be because of the fact that there's a good number based on they're having it too low, or maybe we have an over or something like that. So I would definitely say that I wouldn't want to go crazy with it, but I would think that 2 or 3 from the same prop is definitely fine. And then for sure, like for rebounds, a lot of like for example in that Kings game, a lot of the Kings project well for me from a rebounding perspective, just because of how good Charlotte is for a matchup. So I would definitely say to keep an eye out for that as well.
Okay, so you can see our prop model here. I don't know if you have any that you're looking at today, but I mean, it seems like we look at just the top 3. I'm hiding it. I'm hiding it for a reason, Kyle. One, because you have to pay to get this, right? You have to pay to get our projections. You have to pay to get our prop model, our pick'em tool. You got to pay for this, right? If you just want it on its own, the props and pick'em package is cheaper. You could just get that, and you just get this. You could even download, the CSV of the projections. But it also comes with a combo premium package if you're playing DFS as well on all the sports or everything. You can do this for everything, right? And as I always say, I don't want you to get this. I don't want you. I'm actively. My sales pitch is that I'm only going to show you the top 3 because I don't make any money from RotoGrinders if you sign up. There's no affiliate fee. I don't get a commission or anything. They pay me to do the shows, sure, I guess, but I use these, and the more people that use this, the more the lines will move. So I don't want you to. So please don't. I'll show you the top 3 because I'm gonna be doing the top 100 today. So like here's the 3. We'll show you the top 3 from what I can see right now. Manuel Quickly over 4.5 assists. Chet Holmgren under 7.5 rebounds. Bam Adebayo under 4.5 assists. Are these on your radar? Remember, Kyle, you have to explain to me why these things are overs or under. Because me, I just like close my eyes, bet 100 things, wake up, and I probably have money in my account.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's
the only things that I would be concerned about is if these are on teams that we're expecting, some guy to be out. Like I wouldn't be taking Ingram and McCollum unders today,
yeah.
right now, right? Like I wouldn't be doing that with Zion, not knowing if Zion's going to play. Like the Celtics ones, I'm not even sure if the props are up, but I wouldn't even touch the Celtics props unless you have some take on how you think they're going to actually, what their starting lineup is going to look like. But I'm looking at these teams like I could take these 3, right?
Yeah. So for the Celtics game, I think these guys played this. The spread was at -6 last night. It's at -9 now for the Celtics. So those looks like those guys would play. I would guess based on the numbers there. In terms of the props that you just pulled up, Adebayo, I think that's probably just a high number there in terms of what he's sort of been producing. Obviously, Jimmy Butler's out, but again, it's also not the best matchup. Oklahoma City's been fine defensively. Nothing. They're pretty much middle of the pack, so it's not crazy. But he's been I would say, just not producing at that number. I think he's averaging less than 4 a game this year, and Butler's been out for a large portion of the year, honestly. And then even in games with Butler out, 3.7 assists per game. So yeah, I think the Adebayo one's fine. In terms of who was the first guy, quickly, right?
Quickly over
Yeah,
4.5 assists and Holmgren under 7.5 rebounds.
Yeah, the quickly number I like a lot. He's been over this number in every game that he's been. I think maybe except for the first one as a Raptor, and he actually didn't close last night, which I think is going to be weird. He played 26 minutes in the last 2 games, so it seems pretty consistent. But he played 37 minutes in the Kings game 3 games ago. I think he's going to be a guy that plays 30 plus minutes every night for this team. I think he's just great. I think he's one of the better players on the team, actually. So I like the number for quickly. And then let me see where I have Holmgren at. Holmgren, I have.
I'm going right now. You can see on the screen. This is what I
Oh,
do. I'm here. Why not? Why not do it? Here, $40 done.
yeah. And then Holmgren, I have projected for 7 rebounds for myself as well. So tough spot there against Bam. So yeah, I think it wouldn't be surprised if Holmgren, again, like for a guy like Holmgren, especially for these centers, he's been producing poorly from a rebounding perspective as is lately. But you also now factor in the fact that it's a bad matchup. The line is probably at kind of where his baseline is because he's averaging 7.3 rebounds a game. You also have to factor in that there's paths to the under with potential foul trouble here dealing with Bam. So yeah, I like the Holmgren number as well.
Bam, $40 done. And then we also got what else is on the top three? Oh, Adebayo under four and a half assists, right? Adebayo, 4.5 assists. Let's go under minus 113. And I mean, if you want to show, I mean, like the thing is about the prop model, it'll show you based on our projections what the win percentage of under 4.5 is. So, and what the edge is. And this is all it is like what's 70% as an American odds? That's like minus 220 or so, right? Right. So you look under 4.5 should be priced minus 220, and you go, oh, well, this is at minus 113, right? Minus 113 is like 53.5%, right? So you can compare like one of the biggest skills that you could have as a sports bettor is being able to at least estimate, if not just literally get an odds converter, right?
Yeah.
They're a little calculator to just be able to convert American odds to implied probabilities, right? Or even decimal odds. It depends on what you're using them for, right? Just so you can get a sense of like, oh, well, what happens if Bam Adebayo's under 4.5 was minus 200? You'd be like, wow, well, I'm laying 200. It's like, well, according to our projections, right, he's a 70% chance. Like minus 200 is 66%, right? So technically that bet would still have a 4% edge, right? Once you get used to kind of converting all these things, even just estimate, right? Minus 150, that's 60%. Plus 150, 40%, right? Minus 200, 33, 66%, 33%. You get used to kind of these numbers, and then everything in between. So you're not scared off by like lines that are like, well, I'm not going to take plus 200 on this. It's like, well, that's 33% chance, and we're saying that it happens 45% of the time. Like that's a humongous edge. Who cares? Go take it. Right. So I'm looking here, $40 minus 113. Right. And then you could also compare to obviously we show all the legal books, we show you the best number, right? Where it is at FanDuel. I mean, you could do that. But if you wanted to go elsewhere, you could use this chart and go, well, let's say I'm limited on, let's say FanDuel hates me, right? FanDuel said, go screw yourself. You can't bet here anymore. And you're like, well, I would still want to use the top 20. It's like, well, just take these win percentages and go to wherever you are. And as long as it's better than the number, yeah, you may have less of an edge. Maybe Chet Holmgren's 7.5 under isn't an 18% edge. Maybe it's only a 16% edge. That's still fine with me, right? So getting used to understanding what win percentage and edge is and just how to convert American odds to implied probabilities. I mean, that's very similar, Kyle, right? To when we look at projections in that would normally be in lineup HQ. I don't know. They updated the projections and I'm not seeing anything. Understanding that the F points column is like a 50th percentile outcome. Like the floor and the ceiling are like one standard deviation. Like they all go with probability, right? That when we say that, someone's median projection is 48, that doesn't mean we think he's going to score 48 fantasy points. It just means 50% of the time he scores more and 50% of the time he scores less. That's really all that it means, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then in terms of like just taking even even if you didn't want to go to an odds converter, like essentially the edge percentage is just our implied odds versus the book, so you can easily just find where those edges are from a perspective. And that's why we sort it by edge percentage. That's kind of what we look at for placing those bets. And then your point on maybe if you're limited on a book, a lot of the books actually have the same lines providers, especially the smaller ones. So, or at least similar ones. So you're probably not going to be losing a ton anyway. So yeah, I would definitely, not be afraid to shop around. But even if you get limited somewhere, you're probably, especially in NBA, there's so many consistent lines where, maybe one site has them minus 125 and maybe the other one has minus 130. But for the most part, you're going to see pretty consistent lines just because a lot of these books have the same or similar lines makers. So yeah, I think that that's definitely a good process for it.
I'm going to Prize Picks now. I'm doing the same thing quickly. The Adebayo looks like that we have a better edge on the under 16.5 rebounds and assists, right? But we got the quickly one, quickly over on the over assists, right? I believe on the Pick'em tool, because these are the Pick'em tool and the prop model are all tied to our projections. So if you want to if unless you're trying to bet on like 1,700 things, like the top things are always going to show in these tools. And if you only want to make like one Prize Picks card or two Prize Picks cards or on Underdog, or you only want to make, I just want to make 5 prop bets today. Like, dude, you don't have to even download our projections or anything. Just literally go to our tools. And obviously, as I always say, check the timestamps. Always check the timestamps. Trae Young, blocks and steals less. Okay, let's take a look. I'm gonna put a fiver together right now, right? And I'm just using blocks and steals. Is that less? I'm only to Kyle. I'm only doing this live on the air just to show that like this is. People don't believe me, Kyle. People don't believe me that this is literally what I'm telling you. I get emails and I get messages. It says it can't be that you're just using like the RotoGrinders projections to bet on stuff. And I go, I am. And they go, well, how if it was profitable, like why wouldn't more people be doing it? I go, exactly. I go, I thank God they don't. Right. I mean, so like. I don't know what else to say. It makes no sense to me. Kyle Kuzma, less than 10.5 rebounds and assists. Let's go there. Kuzma, less than 10.5 rebounds and assists. Less? Are we doing the less? Less? Where's the less? I don't even know. Right? Less. Okay. Now, the thing is that you're not going to win every day. I mean, the whole thing is that, yeah, I do this. I bet in volume, and I make 6 to 8% over the course of time, which better than DFS cash games and less variance. So like don't judge our projections or what you do by a very small sample size. But like I'm just gonna do this. It's like, okay, here's a 5, here's a 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Typically I do $30, right? There you go. Done. Right. And I may play a couple of more. And I may obviously after the show and a little bit later, I'll download the projections, Kyle. And I'll take 20 minutes and I'll put in probably somewhere between 75 and 100 bets. Right.
It sounds like you need a lineup optimizer for betting. That's what
I wish there was a CSV upload. If the sites had CSV uploads, I could do this even quicker.
Yeah.
The problem is that they don't. You have to do it manually. I have to use the find function. I like the fact that most of the books do offer functions that make it quicker.
Yeah, for sure.
So like what I'll do is that if I'm on DraftKings, like I'm just gonna go. Let me get all my rebounds props in, and I just go to the rebound screen, and I just find all the rebounds props, and then I'm flat betting them. So it's like $30, $40 a piece across the board, and then I go to the points. Then I go to do I have any PRAs? Do I have any PAs? Do I have any R? And by the time, and I just go ding, 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 and I use the find function in the browser to type like the guy's beginning of his first name or something. It takes me there, and I put it in. I put it all on one thing, take all singles, and I'm done. Right? FanDuel's a little bit more complicated, but they do have a search bar, so I'm able to just go player by player and just go search bar, find it, done, in. Can I get it all done in an hour? That's my goal. Can I get $3,000 to $5,000 in bets in under an hour? That's my goal, Kyle.
So do you ever come back later and look for new lines? Yeah.
Sometimes if I feel like it.
Yeah, I'll normally do. Obviously, I'm paying like attention to NBA throughout the day for everything. Right. So like it's just easier for me to do it naturally. But because I'm up late usually, so I'll set up my stuff to run the numbers on my model at like 2 a.m, put in my initial bets, come back at like 11, put in a second round of bets, and then kind of wait until I have all my updated projections, and I'll look at the line, see if there's anything else out there, and sometimes I get really good numbers even on stuff later in the day, just because I feel like
Mhm.
sometimes when news breaks, I mean, I think my model sometimes I feel better adjusting to news than some books do. So yeah, sometimes I like to get even late numbers as well. So I kind of do like 3 rounds of bets.
Right. I mean, it there's no correct answer to this because there are edges out 24/7,
Yeah,
right? There's probably you could build a lacrosse model and there's some goalie saves on some book that's off that gets
yeah,
updated at 8 in the morning. Like you get to the point where like there's a cutoff and there's no correct answer to the where's the cutoff. So like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm gonna check the NBA lines at 5, 6 o'clock at night Eastern. And sometimes I just don't feel like it. It's just like, okay, well, what happens if you miss something good? It's like I'm betting 30, 40 bucks each. I'm not like trying to get 10 grand down. I'm not doing that type of stuff. It's like, dude, I got
yeah,
100 bets in. Like one extra thing for 40. Like let's say, for instance, this is how I view it, Kyle. I view it very similar to poker, hourly rate. So if I'm flat, like if I could get, let's say, $4,000 down on $140 bets, let's say. If my average expectation, even if you take into account that some of these edges may not be completely correct, the models aren't perfect, let's say it's 5%, right? That would be nice. 5%. People are greedy. They think you're getting 20, 30%. You're not. Right? Maybe short periods of time you are, but
yeah,
5% on $4,000, it's 200 bucks.
yeah.
So how much is my time worth? So I need to be at like, if I could do that in an hour, then give me the $200. But like, imagine me going, well, what happens if you're going to miss this 20% edge? What happens if you have it's a 50% edge at 6 o'clock? And I go, I'm betting $40. You know what that expectation is? 20 bucks.
Yeah.
Right. So like yet you understand what I mean? Like at some point are you going to spend all 16 hours a day staring at your screen for 1% edges? Like some people do, and that's
It, and
fine.
And one thing is, for the most part, if there's a 50% edge, and it's not even just me telling you this, anyone who works on the prop model will tell you this. If there's a 50% edge, there's probably something wrong with the projection, just
Right.
because the book's typically not that wrong. So,
Right.
yeah, so again, you're probably the sweet spot for me is like, at 15 to 20% edge in our prop model. And sometimes even lower, like, later in the season, the last 2 weeks, we had a great 2 weeks, and the edge numbers were so much lower, but it's just, it's still, you're never going to see like a 50% edge. So you don't have to have that FOMO of like, oh, I missed out on a 50% edge. Because if there's a 50% edge, the projection's probably wrong. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, that's the paradox of prop betting is that the more and more the line is off, the less and less it's likely that you're right and they're wrong.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
the market wouldn't be off by that much, right? And then what happens is that the reason why I bet flat rather than Kelly is that you get into with prop betting. Now with sides and totals, you could do Kelly stuff because it's a much more efficient. It's an actual market. But sometimes you'll see an NFL where it's like, wow, this shows as a 38% edge, and it's like if I bet Kelly, I'd be betting like $27,000 on the. It's like what ends up happening is that if you do Kelly or even half Kelly or quarter Kelly, is that you're going to be betting more on the bigger edges. But the thing is that the bigger the edge, the less likely that it's right. So what ends up happening is that you're betting more on opportunities that you're more likely to be wrong or off. You may not be wrong, but you may not have something that shows that the 38% edge may only be an 11% edge. So
yeah,
it's not like it's bad to bet on it, but if you went by a Kelly system, you'd be betting way too much that you'd end up going broke doing those numbers rather than bet on everything as if it's a 5% edge. Like bet on
yeah,
everything as if it's a 8%. Like do something more like that. And it kind of protects you, especially if you're betting in volume.
yeah,
If you're not betting in volume, you're just saying I'm taking 4 or 5 bets, you're playing kind of a different game. Then feel free to go, I'm going to bet 200. I'm going to try to get $500 a piece down. Now you're playing, $300 cards on prize picks, right? And then the problem with doing that is that if you do too well, you end up back down to here's $8.72 and good luck, right?
yeah, yeah.
So anything else, Kyle, that coming out today, tomorrow, NBA, NFL, what's going on with you with content?
I'll be on the NBA show later today. with Dean and Squirrel, I think. So I'll be on that later. I think that's 5 p.m. Eastern time, and then have some football content coming out for the wild card week with all the lineup HQ tags and Sunday best and all that stuff. So yeah, hopefully, looking forward to a good week of wild card week. I like the way they have it set up where it's Saturday, Sunday, and Monday games. So yeah, I think it'll be a good week of some good football. Hopefully the Lions can come on with a win. That'd be nice to see them get their first playoff win and maybe ever. I don't even know if that's I think that's ever, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, looking forward to it.
And just want to let you guys know for tonight's NBA slate, we have SimLabs in beta for NBA, open for free tonight. Obviously, you can't use it now. I mean, remember, NBA is very fluid. So they'll run the Sims later today, right? And they'll obviously update it over and over again, depending on, news and projection changes. So if you want to test out our SimLabs product, which is part of our combo premium package, you never have to pay extra for it. So if you want to try that out tonight, rotogrinders.com/SimLabs/NBA, you could use it for tonight's NBA slate. And that's going to be running in beta from today through Sunday. And then after Sunday, it'll be behind, the combo, premium, whatever, membership. So if you want to try that out tonight, test it out in beta. All right. Remember, I want to say beta because get into the SimLabs Discord channel. If you see any bugs or anything, always let us know. And we'll be adding more sports, right? NBA, FanDuel, MLB coming up, NHL, who knows, right? So we're building this out. So go try that out. rotogrinders.com/SimLabs. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Hit that subscribe button if you're new here and hit the notification bell to always know when we go live. I'll be on tomorrow with Will. We'll be talking some NBA, NHL props, anything that you're thinking about in daily fantasy props and pick 'em on RotoGrinders today.